ओम श्री गणेशाय नमः। ओम श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रयविनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं। परमानन्दमाधवम्। ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्मयेधि वेदस्य माणिस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधीतेन अहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि हृदं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्माम् अवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्तिः शान्तिः। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारे हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा जिह्वे पिबस्वामृतमेतदेव गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति। हे कृष्ण हे यादव हे सखेति। हे कृष्ण हे यादव हे सखेति। हे कृष्ण हे यादव हे सखेति। So we were on shloka 19, mantra 19. Ya enam vetti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhau tau na vijanitah nayam hanti na hanyate. I told you in the last class that this slok Bhagwan has taken exactly from Katha Upanishad with the conversation between Nachiketa and Yamraj, and this is actually from Prathama Adhyay Dvitiya Valli 19th slok of 19th mantra of Katha Upanishad. Bhagwan has made only little bit change here, but I'll first explain how the shloka talks about. He talks one thing here, Ubhau Tau, both of the things whosoever thinks like that, they both are, I will call them ignorant, Bhagwan says. Ubhau Tau na vijanita. They both don't know the actual world in this whole creation in its real sense. He says, Ya enam veti hantaram. When we see some words here, we need to understand, Bhagwan is talking in a war field to Arjun. So some words Bhagwan has used here will be like, the one who thinks that he is going to kill someone because it's a war field. Don't think that Bhagwan is a warmonger here. He says that one who thinks he's going to be the killer of these many people, or he is going to get killed by those people. Because that was the doubt of Arjun in the beginning shlokas. He says, I do not know Bhagwan what to do. Even if I get killed by them or I kill them, which one is good for us supremely, I don't understand. So that's how the statement started. So Bhagwan is referring to the same thing here. One who considers himself to be the killer of someone or getting killed by someone. But the reason I have to step back and explain you is that, you should take this word Hantaram here because it's a warfield. So Bhagwan is referring to Arjun as a killing and being killed. But you should say the word here, Kartaram and Karma. The one who thinks himself to be the doer of action. That's what Bhagwan is meaning here. Hantara means because Arjun is he's a Yodha. He is going to kill people if you're standing in a war because he's part of an army. So for him, the Kartaram, the doership, will relate to killing people. And there are, two ways to look at the whole things which we face in life. For some things, we face the result of what we have done. Okay, that's a normal parlance. I went and did, for example, we go and do higher studies. Because of the higher studies, somebody may get a good job or someone may get settled somewhere else. There is a direct relationship between doing and getting the result. That's how we see here. Okay, the second way of, facing the action is somebody else does the action and we face. For example, how do you explain that? Somebody else's action, I am actually bearing the fruit. But Bhagwan says, karma is very clear. You are bearing the fruit of your action only. But when you translate that into the world, even though, whatever result is coming to you, good or bad, is part of your own karma, which you have done in some other life. You cannot relate cause and effect here. This action translates into this. But there has to be a seen cause. Okay? Seen cause is like, some karma is supposed to come to me, it will be given through someone. For example, I was talking to her, you are doing, charity, running an NGO. And, so those kids are receiving help from you. You may see that, in a real sense, whatever you are doing, they are receiving. That's one way to see the cause and effect in this world. But, actually, you are doing because those kids ought to receive through their karma in some other life. We are translating it real here because that's how we see the transactional world. So, whatever are fruits of action I bear comes out of only two things. One is my direct action. The other is somebody else's action. And another good way to explain this that, somebody insulted someone, for example. Okay, I see that the insult is coming from that person. But one thing is that, yes, in a real sense, in this transactional world, somebody is insulting, so somebody else is bearing the brunt of that insult, and that person may feel bad or may get mentally impacted or whatever. That is the direct way to see the cause and effect. But actually, if you just really literally step back and see, actually what you're getting is coming from somewhere else. Somebody has to become cause to do something, no? How will you get? Somebody helps, somebody receives help. That person who's receiving help, it's his karma to receive help. That person who's helping also, he's creating his own karma in the future. That's how you should see. Here Bhagwan says, Ya enam veti hantaram. If you see yourself as being the killer of these people, those people who are standing here, you see that you are going to kill them. Or in case you don't kill them, they end up killing you. So either you think that you are a doer, or you think that you are the receiver of somebody else's karma. If somebody thinks like that, ubhau tau, both those people who think like that, na vijanitaha, they don't understand the real sense of this self at all. When I use the word enam here, if you see the shloka, he says, ya enam. The enam word here is for ya atmanam. Because the self is being explained in the last few shlokas, 16, 17, 18. It started from 16th and it is going to end at 21. Till 21, Bhagwan is, talking about one particular topic. So when he says, Ya enam, you should translate this, Ya atmanam. The one who considers the self as the doer of action or the receiver of somebody else's action, Both those people who think like that, they don't understand the true nature of Atma at all. They don't understand the true nature of self at all. Because this self, Nayam Hanti na Hanyate. This self neither kills nor gets killed. Now, to understand that, you have to know the previous shlokas, what I have explained in elaborate detail in the last few classes. Because remember one thing, the self does not become doer of any action at all. I forgot to bring the BMI chart today, but you guys remember the BMI chart. So remember, there is one Om at the top of the chart. Okay, I'll send you the BMI chart in the group. Whoever is in the group, you can keep it with you guys. Om is on the top. So when I say Atmanam, I am referring to Om. Om does not end up, Om means the Atma, the self, does not end up doing any karma at all. It's not part of any karma. So since it is not or the doer of any karma, it is not going to bear the fruit of that any karma also. So both that relationship is gone from the self perspective. Then the question should come, who is the doer of action? Who is the actual doer of action? In the BMI chart, it starts from Vasana. Vasana pulls us into action. And I'll tell you one thing, there are good Vasanas and bad Vasanas also. Somebody does charity, it's also good Vasana. It's a Vasana only. Somebody does bad thing, it's also coming out of Vasana. Things are driven out of our own character and our own Vasanas. There is no dearth of opportunities for good or bad. Where somebody and what somebody ends up doing depends on their own Vasana and the culture they have cultivated. So actually, the doership, who is actually exactly doing the transaction in the world, that's the M and I, the mind and intellect. Along with Vasana, mind and intellect ends up doing the action. So then if mind and intellect is doing the action, who is supposed to bear the result? The fruit of action? Mind and intellect. Simple. Simple as that. Body is just an instrument. Who is the experiencer? Who is the enjoyer? Who is the one who is actually bearing all the fruits? Who is enjoying the fruit? Who is crying and cribbing on the fruit? It's the mind and intellect. And remember, body is left here. Mind and intellect is going to traverse through different bodies. Simple, since it's going to get traversed through different bodies, it has to bear all the fruits of all the actions it has done in any life, so to say. Because it continues. There is a continuity in mind and intellect. So you do the action, so you bear. So, there are kind of people you see, there is a thing which, in the olden times, it was definitely there prevalent, that do good, think good, cultivate good habits. Why? Because by cultivating those things, by doing good action, you are actually inheriting good fruit in the future lives to come. It may not translate immediately, but it will translate because karma has got three portions. Sanchit karma, Prarabdha karma and Agami karma. There's a three distinction of karma. Sanchit means that box or that, collection of all your karmas ever since your M and I has been in existence. All the fruits are lying in something called Sanchit karma. Prarabdha means those which have already started to give you the fruit. With what? Within this body. That's become Prarabdha. Prakarshena Arabdha. They already started to bear fruit for you. Those actions which you have done in the past, which started to give you fruit now, they come under Prarabdha. Agami is what? Till the time your M and I is there, whatever karma you are going to do in this life and in the future life, that will come under Agami karma. Because, so if a jiva is there, if a mind and intellect, the internal equipment is there, it cannot live without action. Good or bad, that's a different subject altogether. So Bhagwan says, Ubhautao, both these people, I will call them completely ignorant. They are living in this world ignorant only, and I do not know if they are making any effort to even know how the self functions. Self is not a doer of any action, what so to say. And in the previous shlokas, he explained one word called aprameya. I'm going to take one portion which is, Gurudev used to talk about out in his lecture somewhere. Gurudev was, taking some session in Uttarkashi. Gurudev means Pujya Swami Chinmayananda. I'm talking about them. He was taking one session at Uttarkashi. So there were local people who were also sitting there. At that time, many years ago, electricity was a new thing in villages actually. So, suddenly it was becoming dark. Gurudev went and, suddenly switched on and the light, came up. So that man was sitting there, he was like local man. He said, "Are you a magician? What did you do for this? Suddenly there's a light everywhere." He said, "No, I'm not a magician, it's an electricity." So that he did not understand what electricity means now. Now I'm giving an example because in this real world, electricity is very close was to explain you the self in that form and manner. So he says, he sat there. It was started to feel little warm. So Gurudev again got up and he switched on the fan. The moment he switched on the fan, suddenly the air started going around. So he said, "What is this? Are you really a magician? Because you clicked something, you pressed something, and the air started flowing everywhere, and we started to feel better." So Gurudev said, "No, it's electricity." So that villager asked, "Few minutes back, you are such a liar, I tell you. Few minutes back, you said electricity is that which is light, coming out of this bulb. It's giving light. Now you are saying electricity is that which is coming out of fan. How can the same thing come twice in two different forms?" The self is in the same way. Actually, what happens is, it is the same everywhere. How it manifests depends upon the body, depends upon the equipment in which it is, giving its light of consciousness, by the way. So, it's very easy to explain that way. So that man asked Gurudev that electricity, I can't understand what electricity is. So Gurudev says, "I can't explain you what electricity is actually. Can anybody define electricity? You can't define that." So Gurudev, "But I need to know what it is." So Gurudev said, "Do one thing, take a chair, take that bulb off and put your hand inside it. You will know what electricity is." So what that man did, he just put up a chair, he, took off the bulb and he put his hand to know, because electricity can't be seen. So he just touched it. The moment he touched it, he started shouting with, that because the current he's already hit by the current. So he started shouting, he started running around with pain. He sat down. So Gurudev said, "Now have you seen electricity?" He said, "I have experienced electricity." He said, "Can you explain how electricity is?" Now this man has experienced, but he cannot explain. So Gurudev said, "Explain what electricity is. I also want to know." So Gurudev said that because I have a man who's sitting in front of me who has already got the experience. So I took him as my guru. I fell on his feet and asked him, "Explain me what electricity is." So the same man told him, "I cannot explain you, but I can tell you the same step what you told me to do, just do it, you will also experience yourself." In the same way, self can only be experienced. It cannot be known. Even those people who have experienced self, they cannot explain you what self is all about. That is what aprameya means. That's exactly what he's saying here. When you see the form of self, the same self expressing through different people, different instruments, it has got a wide variety of difference. Why? That entirely depends on the instrument that self is reflecting through, that self is lighting through. As electricity, there can be 100-watt bulb also, there can be 1,000-watt bulb also. The same electricity will manifest differently in two different kind of bulbs. The same electricity, when it comes to fan, it will give you air. The same electricity, when it goes through a bulb, it will give you light. But electricity doesn't differ anywhere. In the same way, the self has got no difference between instrument to instrument. It's the same. That's why we don't, आत्मा सेम है हर एक में. आपके शरीर से किस तरह व्यक्त करता है वो आपके उपकरण पे निर्भर करता है. उपकरण मीन्स इंस्ट्रूमेंट. इंस्ट्रूमेंट क्या है? So your mind and intellect, so will be the reflection of that consciousness through your body, through your life. Exactly the same way. More or good-natured, more cultured your mind and intellect is, the self will seem a dharmatma. A terrorist's mind and intellect, the self will see a wretched person. The self is same. It's got no difference. He doesn't get punished for any karma of the terrorist also. It says that, self is the same in a saint also and in a thief also is the same. There is no difference in the self at all. Bhagwan says, remember that self is not the doer of an action, neither it is bearing the fruit of somebody else's action. तो वो ना तो करता है, ना वो किसी के कर्म का विषय है. कर्म का विषय मतलब किसी और ने कर्म किया and I have to bear the fruit. ऐसा होना तो नहीं चाहिए, बट दिखता तो यही है. So Bhagwan says, Arjun, remember this. This is how you need to understand the self. Self sitting in any body does not do any action at all. Then the question comes, we go and pray to Bhagwan and Bhagwan gives us so many things. How does it work? See, that is entirely up to your devotion. Remember one thing, the self is the giver of all the fruit of action also. All the fruit of action means he is not choosing a fruit to be given to you. He is the one who staggers the fruit of action of your actions to come in which part of your life. He can delay, he can and convert also, but that entirely depends on your devotion and relationship with the God. I told you in the chart itself, if man thinks that by doing action he can become purer year after year, that's not going to happen. It doesn't happen like that. I'll give you one very beautiful statement which Pujya Swami Subodhananji gives. What is the difference between desire and duty? What happens with desire is that as the desire fulfills, our vasana increases. But as we fulfill duty, our karma starts leaving us. It starts getting removed from vasana. That's why our Rishi Munis have always kept this thing, do your duty, focus on your duty. What you can do extra is up to you, but don't, run away from your duty. Here also, Bhagwan is telling Arjun, you are a Kshatriya. Your duty is what? To fight. You are born as a Kshatriya. Because of your vasana, in your previous life, because of your own karma, you were born as Kshatriya. And a Kshatriya is meant to fight when the situation comes. Now standing in the war field, you cannot run. But remember one thing, in the truest form, in the Sat form, your actual self does not become the doer or inheritor of any action at all. Understand this and be free in doing your action. How you become free in doing action? You are not going to worry about the fruit. You know one thing, it was your duty, just do your duty and move on. As you keep doing your duty, whatever vasanas are lying with regards to that duty, it starts falling off, dispensing off from your set of vasanas. That's the purpose of the whole duty and desire, the difference between that. Now we'll go to the next slok. Next slok also Bhagwan has taken exactly from Katha Upanishad. Next slok is from Prathama Adhyaya Dvitiya Valli and it's 18th slok of Katha Upanishad, by the way. I'm giving you the address because I will tell you from where it is coming from. Now, why I'm saying this? The actual source of knowledge is Upanishad only. But Upanishad, the only thing is that it's very direct in explaining. You can reach Upanishad only once you have done your sadhana well and you have purified your mind and intellect in such a way that it starts grasping subtler subjects. See, that's the only point you need to remember. That is the whole purpose of sadhana in the Adhyatmic Jagat, in the spiritual world. Bhagwan says, Na jayate mriyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyah ajo nitya shashvatoyam puranah na hanyate hanyamane sharire. न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणः न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. You see, couple of words Bhagwan has referred in the past also, in the past shlokas also. He spoke about birth and death in the previous shlokas also. He spoke about hanyate, hanyamane. He's talking about here also. Why? Because from shloka 16 to 21, Bhagwan is actually covering one particular topic. That topic ends in the next shloka, which is 21st, where Bhagwan will give one example to explain. Bhagwan says, Arjun, na jayate mriyate va kadachit. It's never ever happened that the self is born or it dies. See, these are the two basic things which we see in ourself in this transactional world. What? We are born and one day we have to die. In between, Bhagavan has already covered that. So remember, self does not go through this thing of being born, or because it's not born, it's not going to die. But you have to take it in different way also. Whatever is born has to die. You do whatever. It's just a matter of time. Some may be 50 years, some may be 100 years. There are some people who are claiming that they have been living for 300 years. It's that time period I'm not talking about. Time period is different. In Devlok, they live for many thousands of years because their concept of time is different than us here. 1 year of us is 1 day of them. So just imagine if their life is like 100 years of them, how many years have gone by from here? So let's not talk about that. The concept of time varies as we move about into different lokas. But Bhagavan here says, na jayate, na mriyate va kadachit. The self is never ever born. Because it's never ever born, it's never ever going to die. That birth and death, though vikar hai, two changes we talk about, but actually there are shad vikar we talk about. There are in Tattva Bodh it says, Jayate, Vipranamite, Vardhate, Apakshiyate. There are 6 vikars they talk about which happens in the whole body. Whole general. Apakshiyate and all those things which happens. There are 6 vikars. So Bhagwan, with the first and the last vikar, Bhagwan has negated everything. He said, this self does not go through any change at all. Forget about death and birth and death. That's one part of it. Va kadachit. Now he uses 3 words here. Na ayam bhutva abhavita va na bhuyah. There are 3 things he is talking about in this shloka here. Bhutva. I used one word, I don't know how many of you remember that. Prag abhav and pradvans abhav. You remember? क्या है प्राग अभाव?
जो आगे पीछे नहीं होते, क्या है? What is that? प्राग पास्ट में जो होते हैं.
देखो ऐसे समझो, प्राग मतलब बर्थ से पहले ना होना और डेथ के बाद ना होना. Pradvans means after the death, as ceases to exist. That happened for body. Before a body is born, or before it is born, it was at a state when it was not there, right? It was called pragabhav. Before birth, it was not there. Absence before birth. And once after the death, pradvans means once it is died, it's uska nash ho gaya. After the death also, this body is not going to be there. So body qualifies for that pragabhav and pradvan swabhav. Bhagwan says bhutva means that which was not there before will suddenly come into manifest. He is explaining the same jayate and mriyate here. There are 3 kind of things what happens. One, we are not here, we were in a invisible state. I'll use the word invisible for a reason. Darshan se adarshan, adarshan se darshan. This is what keeps happening with us. Adarshan se I was not seen. When I came into the body, I started to be seen in this body. They can identify me with this body. Okay, once I die, but then what happen? It will start again going to the adarshan. Adarshan means it will become invisible. I'll become invisible. Then bhuya means I may become invisible for immediately after the death, but I will be born somewhere else. That is called bhuya. So bhutva, abhutva, bhuya. These 3 stages we keep crossing. So that's what Bhagavan has said here. Please remember, because there is no pragabhav and pradvansabhav, that self does not go through bhutva, that does not go through abhavita. It's never going to be a time when it is not going to be there. There was never a time when it was not there. And na bhuya means, now since that is not there, he is not going to be born somewhere else also. Na bhuya is not going to be born in future. Now the reason why Bhagavan picked up the future, there is a reason behind it. Many people living in this life, they look for somebody else they look up to, and they think that maybe in next life I am born like that. See, that's a desire. Like I'm giving you an example, there are many people who look up to many people in this one, whether it is film stars or whether it is, industrialist, or there are so many people look up to. I want to be born in Ambani's house. There are people who have told me that. That's a bhuyaha. You are wanting something in the future. That means what? You do not have the want to become free from birth and death. You still want. Remember, desire is the one which keeps us in this world. Desire is the one which will take us away from this world and bring us back into this world. That's what Bhagavan is meaning here. He says, remember, na ayam, for the self, he doesn't become bhutva, doesn't become abhavita. It's not that, he was not there and going to manifest. It's not that he's going to get destroyed, or he's not that, after destruction he's going to get born somewhere else. All these three things, Bhagavan says, na. For the self, these three things doesn't happen. He says what? Then he gives certain qualities. Some qualities he is given in the past shlokas also. One, he says, ajaha. The self is what? Unborn. Aja means ajanma. Ajanma matlab he is unborn. Remember, all the changes in the world, in us, everything can happen only on a changeless platform. Okay? I would use the word. All changes can happen on a changeless substratum. If that substratum also changes, our changes cannot sustain. That proves that this self always remain in single form ever. It doesn't differentiate between you and me. The difference between you and me and other people around is only of the MI, mind and intellect, and our vasanas, that which drives our actions. That is the only difference. What happens to a Mahatma who becomes Jivan Mukta? I want to tell you one thing. Remember one thing, in terms of philosophy, only Advait Vedant, I'm using word purposively, only Advait Vedant accepts a situation of a living being called Jivan Mukta. Matlab, while living he is free. No other philosophy accepts this thing. They all think that mukti happens only after death. But Vedanta is very clear about this fact. Bhagavan will talk about this from 55th shloka onwards. When he talks about, Sthita Prajna, Bhagavan will talk about the mukti. There are people, Mahatmas in this world who, while living in this world, are completely free. Free from everything. Free means what? They are free from vasana. They are free from mind and intellect. Those Mahatmas, sitting in the body, they practice the drishta bhav while transacting in this world. I do not know how many of you have heard this. There is something called, yoga nidra. Has anybody heard that term? What have you heard about yoga nidra? Who said I have?
Asana.
You have.
It's a yoga asana. Wherein you lie down like
Shavasana. Yoga Nidra is कि जिसमें you relax each part of your body and you go to sleep. But Yoga Nidra would probably mean कि वो saints
मतलब बाहर से सब अलग होके then you are inside.
Okay, let me just give you an example. For all of us in this world, there are only three states. What? Waking, dream, and deep sleep. But there is a fourth state also, which is mentioned in Upanishads, especially Mandukya Upanishad talks about it quite elaborately. No, it's called Turiya Avastha. It's an avastha where while transacting in the waking state also, you are Atmastha. I am using one word here. Atmastha means he is placed well in the self. When he is placed well in the self, then he looks at all of us as what? Extension of him.
oneness आ जाती है.
Because he sees us as extension of him, how will he be an inflictor of any karma on us? Why will he be one who will do an action which is going to disturb us or trouble us? Why will he end up doing it? Because we are nothing but extension of him only. That Turiya Avastha is spoken very well in, there is one, inside Ramayana, and there is a text which comes, I'll explain you next time. Bhagwan Ram and Vashisht ji had got a very lengthy discussion on this particular portion of the whole thing. It's called Turiya Avastha. Turiya Avastha is an avastha that person does not get bothered by the waking state, because his instruments, mind and intellect, till they are in this world, they will continue to do the transaction without his involvement. Okay, he's disconnected himself from that M and I. And what happens? Dream state doesn't come to him. He doesn't require deep sleep. He always remain in that avastha, Turiya Avastha. And remember, while we see him transacting in the world, while transacting in this world also, he enjoys the same peace which we have to struggle for the end of the day to have a deep sleep. After deep sleep, what happens to us? We come back and say what? I had a very peaceful sleep. Peace is for who?
For the Atma.
No! That's the point. Atma never sleeps. It is for the M and I. Mainly it's for M and I. Body also, remember, body is an inert object. It doesn't need rest. It doesn't need rest. What are you talking? We all say that, our body is tired, so we are going to, rest. That's a myth which mind has created. Actually, rest is a requirement of mind. What happens in dream? What happens in dream?
The mind is still active.
Very good. Poor mind is struggling because whatever objects in that dream, mind only has become all those objects. Even you may hate someone, if that person comes in your dream, mind only became that, and it's fighting amongst each other. The same mind is fighting both things. The same mind is bearing the fruit of that. Mind itself has become everything in dream. That is why, I told you, in Sanatan Dharma, especially I'm telling you, sweet dream is not a wish, it's a curse. At the end of the day, some people say, good night and sweet dreams. Are you really wishing him or cursing that person? Because if that person you are wishing him to dream, him or her to dream, that means you are telling him don't sleep. You just dream. Be engaged in the state also, and next day that person is like turned into a havoc. I don't understand, I did not get sleep only. That's why, इसलिए हमारे सनातन धर्म में it's called Shubh Ratri, Nisha Swasti. There were good wishes like that. Sleep well. This is also a wish. Sweet dream is not a wish. You are telling him that continue to dream and act in the night also. What are you talking about? How did it come to be a wish? Next day the poor person is tired because he's been struggling through his own dreams in the night. Because dream is also a state. You are bearing fruit of your action in dream also. There are some fruits of your action which has already started to bear their result, but it cannot be born in this body living in the waking state. So that gets manifested in dream state. Dream state is made for that. God has made a merry arrangement. There are people who meet with accident and get hospitalized in dream. What happened? You got saved. At least waking state, you don't have to go through all those things. It's okay, let it go. It's a karma sthal. It's a karma phal bhumi. You are bearing fruits of your action there also. Both states, waking and dream, you are actually bearing fruits of your action. Deep sleep is the state where the mind goes to rest. And next day it gets charged up, come back to do fresh set of action. There is a whole science behind it, but I'll come back some other time later on this point. Bhagwan says the self is ajaha. It's never ever born. Birth and death doesn't happen in the self. It happens to the body, mind and intellect, goes through that, but within the self. But self remains unchanged. He uses the next word. Because it is unborn, it is always nityaha. Nityaha means?
Forever.
It's forever here. Ever here means even when the pralay happens also, the self doesn't go anywhere. Everything happens in self. But self doesn't go through any change whatsoever at all. Bhagavan says, Nitya, it's permanent. The only thing permanent in this world is self. And that is the same self we call God. Our Puja Gurudev used to use one word. Even the atheists are able to deny God because of the power of God. By the way, actually speaking, God alone is here. We are all transactional reality. Anitya will keep coming and going. He alone is permanent. Because he is permanent, that's why our Rishi Muni says, living in human life, establish your connect with God. Because all our other relations we will drop here and go. They won't be there in the next life to support us. But God, He has been there in the past also, He is there in the present also, and He is going to be there in the future also. That's one relationship which is with ours, permanent relationship. Rest all relationships are temporary and transactional. So he says, living in this life, establish your connect well. Bhagavan says, Nityaha. That is what qualifies to be ever, ever permanent. And he uses the word Shashvatoyam. Shashvatoyam means it's immutable. Immutable means there is no mutation which is caused to it at all. It doesn't change at all. Actually, mutation means what? Even growth is actually, I'll use this word this way for you to understand. Growth from childhood to youthhood is actually death of childhood and birth of youthhood. Growing from youthhood to old age is actually death of youthhood and birth of old age. So remember, birth and death keeps happening in life. But this self remains, Shashvata means it remains in same form always. There is not even a wee bit change in that self ever, anywhere, at any point in time. That is what is meant by Shashvata Ayam. Shashvat means Ek Ras is the word actually we use for it. Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji has explained it that way. Ek Ras means it remains in the same form everywhere in everyone. It's not that in a Mahatma the self is different and in a terrorist the self is different. Self doesn't change. Mahatma's inner equipment, mind and intellect, has done such a good job, has become so subtle that the consciousness light reflects in its entire manner through his mind and intellect. For us, it is so clouded that only रोशनी थोड़ी टिमटिमाती है, 0 वाट बल्ब की तरह कहीं हो तो इतना ये हाल है हम लोग का माइंड एंड इंटेलेक्ट का. इसीलिए द होल स्पिरिचुअल लाइफ इज अबाउट क्लीनिंग योर माइंड एंड इंटेलेक्ट. व्हाट यू यूज द वर्ड फॉर योर इंटेलेक्चुअल एंड मेंटल प्योरिटी. अच्छा, actually I'll ask you one question. When we end up doing something wrong, because there are mistakes which has happened from everybody in life. But have you ever spent time to look back the effect of that wrong thing on your mind? You will realize you become impure than before. We cannot think that we'll end up doing bad things to people and we'll end up gaining purity. It's never going to happen. Action has got direct relation to that. Bhagavan says, Shashvatah ayam. It remains in the same form ever. Puranaha. Puranaha means Pura api nava. It is the most ancient of everything. But in spite of being the most ancient of everything, it's still as if it's new. But now usually what happens when things becomes old, it's new things start coming up, it start becoming different. But Bhagavan uses the word Puranaha, means it's even though it is ancient, but it is new. This is where I need to just touch some portions of philosophy and bring out the difference here. Many other religions blame this on Sanatan that you are talking about some myth. Krishna is myth, Rama is myth. Because somewhere we had accepted this term which those people have imposed on us, that Ramayana is a mythology and Mahabharata is a mythology. But we have taken it in our ignorance, but we don't understand this thing. Mythology means that we are ourselves saying that both those people were myth. Mythology comes from myth, no? Myth means what? We are not sure it was there or not. So we have already questioned the existence ourselves. They put this blame on us saying that you are talking about some myth. So Puja Gurudev asked them, okay, so if your is right, then tell me, when did your God come into existence? So they said, Swamiji, what are you saying? Our Jesus was born. So he said, there is the problem. Hold it there. If he is born, that means you have to accept that he has to die also. They are stuck. How will you explain? Because what is born has to die. It is not possible, it cannot, it remains forever. It's not possible at all. So then they say, okay, let me ask you, when did your God come into the place? Said, our God never came. He manifested, he went back. He manifested is a word. That's why we say avatar. He came and he managed the creation, he went where he was. Because he is ever present in this creation. So then, in the last class, I picked up the concept of time. Did you remember what is the concept of time I picked up? The first unit of time is second. The question should come, who is first? Why the first unit of time is second? Actually, wo baat alag hai ki we never thought of those things. The reason is, they say that your God is at the beginning of the century. Century comprises of 99 years. So that cannot be the beginning. Because if you are saying beginning of the century, so okay, let me accept your God was in the first year of the century. Year comprises of 12 months. I'm purposely deducing it. Year comprises of 12 months. Okay, let me just take this way. He was in the first month. A month comprises of 30 days. Okay, let me take this thing that he was in the first day of the month. A day comprises of 24 hours. Okay, let me just take, he was in the first hour. An hour comprises of 60 minutes. Okay, he was in the first second. And then second. Then the question comes, where is the first? See, you have to understand this thing. Our objective, I'm dividing into two people. Objective scientists and subjective scientists. Well, who are objective scientists? When I call Einstein and all those people, we will call them objective scientists. Objective scientists have accepted that the concept of time is nothing but the interval between two events. Okay? So, second, that is why it is called second. First event you can't count. That is why the first unit of time is second. So, they have accepted that it is the interval between two events. Subjective scientists have taken a little bit ahead. They say time is nothing but the gap between two experiences. Okay, first experience is first. The second onwards, the time of concept starts. For example, when I came in and I did Om, the class started. Okay, time will be calculated when this class ends. 1 ghanta ho gaya. Now let's go back home and do whatever we want to do. So the concept of time is nothing but the gap between two experiences. But experiences happens to who? The mind. Mind इनके लिए क्या होता है? Thought. So actually the time is nothing but the experience, the gap between two thoughts. First thought is first. When the first thought converts into the second one, that's where the time starts. And that is why the first unit of time is called second. It can never be called first. First is you. It starts with you. In the same way, the changeless reality, when it was there was no concept of time. That is why it is called Purana. It is the way it Purana means, it is from time immemorial. Even before the concept of time came in, it was there. Concept of time came after that. That is why that reality, that self, is beyond any concept of time. That is what I explained to you in the 16th and 17th and 18th shloka. It is beyond past, present and future. Because it's all concept of time. Time is also part and parcel of this reality. It is happening on that reality. It cannot govern that reality at all. That is why that reality, the self, is beyond time. That is why it is beyond pralay, and it was, it will always be, before even the creation came in, and even after the creation, it will always remain there. So Bhagavan says, since the self is of this nature, na hanyate hanyamane sharire. That self cannot get killed even if this body perishes. It cannot be killed by you. It cannot get killed even if you get killed. Your body gets killed. That's what Bhagavan is explaining in this shloka. And I told you it is coming verbatim from Kathopanishad. Now we'll go to the next one. Bhagavan says, since the self is of this nature, he says, Veda vinashinam nityam ya enamajam avyayam katham sapurushav partha kam ghatayati hantikam. Veda vinashinam nityam ya enamajam avyayam katham sapurushav partha kam ghatayati hantikam. Bhagavan is saying, the one who knows the self like this, Veda, the one who knows like this, how he has explained from 16 onwards, Sat onwards, Avinashi, Ajaha, Nityaha, Shashvataha, Purana, all those things he has explained. The one who knows the self like this, self like what? And he used 3 more words here. See, using in the words again. Because this is a difficult concept, Bhagavan himself is doing a lot of repetition in this thing. He says, Avinashinam, the one who knows the self as non-destructible or indestructible in any periods of time. Nityam, Nitya means always present, permanently there. See, when I say he is beyond time, I am using one more term there. That's called infinite. You've heard this term, right? Infinite. Infinite means what?
No end, no beginning.
No end, no beginning. Remember, infinite can never be comprehended or become the object of a knowledge of the finite. Finite can never know the infinite. Got it? And remember, mind and intellect comes in the category of finite. Body though definitely is more finite than even mind and intellect. It keeps getting destroyed every now and then. So, finite can never understand or comprehend the infinite. It can only experience how? By becoming that infinite. The electricity example I explained you. Even if a kid, you may tell a small kid that, don't go and, touch the plug. Don't touch the plug. The kid's inquisitiveness has not gone. He wants to know, why are they saying no? When he goes once, he or she goes and touches the electricity once, that kid never goes and touches other plugs to see, how the electricity is flowing them. Why? It's become his or her experience. In the same way, once the self becomes one's experience. Remember, self can never be known. Aprameya, Bhagavan has already used that word in the beginning itself, in the 17, 18, 19 shlokas itself. The self cannot be known, but it can be experienced. One more example I'll give you. That, there was a, doll made of salt. It wanted to know the depth of the sea. Okay? Now, can a doll made of salt, the more it starts venturing into the sea, what happens? It melts into the sea. That doll can never, the doll made of salt can never know the depth of the ocean. But it can become the ocean. Then after it becomes the ocean, there is no need of knowing. all the doership, all the bearing the fruits, everything stops there once one knows the self. That's what same happens with a Mahatma. Bhagavan uses the word, once he knows that it is avinashi and it's nityam, it's always present there. Ya enam atmanam ajam avyayam. There are two words here. Ya enam ajam avyayam. It is never becomes the thing to be born. It's never born. It's unborn. The birth and death doesn't happen there. Avyayam means it's immutable. It's like partless. Remember, sometimes destruction happen because there is a destruction which happens to the parts. For example, heart stopped working. Heart is a part of a body. The death of a body can happen and by destruction of any part of the body, by the way. Sometimes brain hemorrhage happens. Sometimes there are many different things which can happen. Cancer comes, some other organ stops functioning. So he says, this self is avinashinam, nityam, ajam, avyayam. The one who knows this is the self like this. Arjun, tell me, katham, how this person, Sapurusha, that man who knows the self like this, how kam ghatayati hantikam, how he can inflict killing on someone. He can, actually it's literally translated like this, how he can kill someone or get someone killed. That is what I mean by kam ghatayati hantikam. There are two ways, one can inflict destruction of someone by directly killing someone or by ordering someone to kill them. Well, inflicting, somebody else to kill him. So he says, the one who knows the self like this, the one who has known and understood the self like this, Arjun, tell me, Sa Purusha, that man, how can he kill someone or inflict somebody to get killed? How can he order someone to get killed? You tell me how. Katham. Arjun, you explain me how. You have not understood the real nature. You are only doing your duty by doing this war. I'm giving you an example. Legal profession, there are times when judge has to pronounce difficult judgments. And the judgment, every time, they are bound by proof actually. How the proof is given, they will have to pronounce the judgment. There are times when judge know that this judgment is not so much right, but the proof is completely anti. They end up passing a judgment like that. There are times when a judge, has to pass a judgment on somebody related to him only in his own court. But remember, if he is confused in that chair, is he a relative or is he a judge? Now remember, if he becomes, sometimes what happens is admixture of duties happens with us. I have heard this from someone only. They told me it is such a confusing thing. Sometimes, we become relative in the court and judge at home. Imagine if you become like that, then I'm sorry, your family will be in great trouble by that. You cannot. Because that which role asks you, you have to do at that place. Everything has got its own place. Somebody is a manager, somebody is a director in a company. But if they start doing that role at home, I'm sorry, the kid may not accept you. They may become anti to you. You can't do that at home. That is your job. That's your duty. Here the duty is different. In one person itself, there are several different conflicting duties at times. But you have to see which place to do which duty. You cannot mix them and say, I didn't know it. Ignorance is not a bliss here. You can't say that. You will not escape it at all. So Bhagavan says, remember Arjun, the one who knows the self like this, how can he do this action, what you are thinking? Now Bhagavan from next shloka onwards will change the topic and get into something different, which we'll see in the next class. Kayena vacha manasendriyairva buddhyatmana va prakrite svabhavat karomi yadyat sakalam parasmai narayanaeti samarpayami श्रीमन्नारायणायेति समर्पयामि ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ओम शांति 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 हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम तत्सत्।